My friend, if you are still breathing, you are still chosen. You are not a mistake drifting through your later years. You are a vessel still carrying divine purpose. Many people reach 60 and begin to think, my best days are behind me. But let me tell you, if God was finished with you, you wouldn't have woken up this morning. Every breath that fills your lungs is heaven's reminder that your mission is not yet complete. When you look back, you might see the wrinkles of time and the footprints of struggle, but when God looks at you, he sees wisdom shaped by endurance. He sees a soldier who has walked through battles and still stands. You are not at the end of your story. You are stepping into the chapter where your experience becomes someone else's hope. You may have retired from your job, but you haven't retired from your calling. You may have slowed down, but the spirit within you has not aged a single day. God can take the lessons of your past and use them to birth new beginnings, not only in your life, but in the lives of those who are waiting for your voice, your guidance, and your prayers. So don't count your years, count your impact. Don't measure your life by how long you've lived, but by how much of God's light you've shared. As long as your heart beats, heaven still has an assignment written with your name on it. My friend, every breath you take is not a random act of nature. It is a sacred whisper from heaven that says, I'm not finished with you yet. You're alive today because the Creator still has purpose flowing through your veins. The same God who formed the mountains and stretched out the heavens has chosen to keep your heart beating in this very moment. That is not coincidence, that is calling. You see, when we were young, we thought life was about speed, how fast we could achieve, how far we could go, how much we could gather. But as time passes and as we step into the years beyond 60, the Spirit begins to teach us something deeper, that purpose is not measured by motion, but by meaning. The question is no longer, how much can I do? But rather, how much of God can I carry into what I do? You are still here because there is still a message inside you that has not yet been delivered. There are prayers that only your voice can release. There are hearts waiting for your wisdom and souls waiting for your compassion. God never wastes a breath, and he never keeps someone alive without a reason. Every inhale you take is a divine declaration that heaven still trusts you with influence. Perhaps you look at your life now and think, what can I offer? My energy isn't what it used to be. My time has already passed. But listen, purpose is not bound by strength, and calling is not limited by time. Moses was 80 when God called him to lead a nation. Abraham was 100 when God fulfilled his promise. The age of your body does not restrict the power of your spirit. If God could ignite a burning bush in the desert, he can surely ignite a fresh fire within you. The enemy's greatest deception in later years is to whisper, "You are done." But the truth is the opposite. You are refined. The furnace of life has burned away what was unnecessary so that only the purest gold remains. You are not weaker, you are wiser. You are not forgotten, you are being repositioned. The breath that flows through your lungs right now is not a leftover gift. It is divine evidence that your story is still being written. Look around you. Every person who crosses your path is an opportunity for you to release what God has placed inside. Maybe it's a word of encouragement to a younger soul who's ready to give up. Maybe it's a quiet prayer for someone who doesn't even know they're being covered. Maybe it's the gentle smile that says, I've been where you are, and you will make it through. The world doesn't just need preachers and prophets, it needs living testimonies, people whose lives shine brighter than sermons. That's you. You are still breathing because there is still someone who needs to see how faith looks when it's tested and still stands. There is someone who needs to watch how a child of God handles the later years with grace, courage, and joy. The younger generation needs the wisdom that only scars can teach. They need to see faith that has been proven through storms, love that has endured disappointment, and joy that has survived sorrow. You are a living Bible for those who may never open one. So do not curse your age, bless it. Do not count your wrinkles as reminders of decline. They are the evidence of divine endurance. Each line tells a story of a battle fought and a victory won. Each breath is a note in the song of perseverance. The Spirit of God still moves in you, still speaks through you, still anoints your words and your prayers. When you wake up in the morning and take that first deep breath, let it be your daily confirmation. God still needs me today. There may be things you can no longer do, but there are new things waiting for you to discover. You might not run as fast, but you can pray deeper. You might not lift heavy loads, but you can lift weary hearts. You might not travel far, but your words, your prayers, and your faith can travel where your body cannot. Your breath carries creative power. When you speak life, heaven partners with your voice. Every breath you take is an invisible thread that connects your spirit to eternity. It means you are still part of God's ongoing masterpiece, a story that began before you were born and will continue long after you leave this world. You may not see the full picture yet, but trust this: every breath you've taken has meaning, and every moment of life is a verse in the song of your destiny. So today, as you breathe in, remember this truth. You are not here by accident. You are not here by luck. You are here by purpose. And until the day your final breath returns to the one who gave it, live every moment as proof that God still has work for you to do. Age is not a barrier to God's purpose. It is the stage upon which His power becomes even more visible. When you were younger, you relied on your strength, your energy, your dreams. But as the years pass, God begins to teach a deeper truth, that His strength is perfected in weakness. What once depended on your ability now rests entirely on His anointing. And that is where real power begins. When you are young, you think you are the one driving the vision. But when you grow older, you realize it was God driving you all along. When your energy starts to fade, His energy takes over. When your plans begin to slow, His timing starts to shine. The less you can depend on yourself, the more room you give Him to show His greatness through you. That is why the power of God often shines brightest through the wrinkles of time. Look through the pages of Scripture, and you will see that heaven often chooses those whom the world calls too old. Moses was 80 when the fire of God burned before him in the bush and called him to deliver a nation. Caleb was 85 when he said, "Give me this mountain." Abraham was 100 when the promise finally came to pass. These men were not the exceptions. They were the evidence that age only magnifies what God can do. When the world says, "You're finished," God says, "Now I can begin." You see, when you were younger, your faith was mixed with ambition. You believed God could move, but you also believed you could help Him do it. As you grow older, that ambition turns into trust. You learn that the real miracle is not in how strong you are, but in how surrendered you've become. The more you release control, the more He releases His power through you. Some people fear aging because they think it means losing relevance. But in the kingdom of God, relevance is not about how fast you move. It's about how deeply you impact. The wisdom you carry is not something that can be taught in books. It was carved into your soul through time, tears, and prayer. Every year you have lived has made you a deeper vessel for the Spirit to flow through. You may not be able to do what you once did physically, but spiritually, you are stronger than ever. When you pray, your words carry weight. When you speak, heaven listens. When you bless, the blessing takes root. You have learned how to touch heaven with your heart, and that is far greater than what youthful strength can accomplish. So don't envy the young. Empower them. Let them run while you guide. Let them build while you bless. Let them dream while you intercede. You are the bridge between generations, the living proof that faith does not retire. You are a channel of continuity between what God has done and what He is about to do. When you lift your hands in worship, heaven sees more than just a person singing. Heaven sees the years of devotion, the prayers prayed in dark nights, the faith that has survived storms. Your praise carries history. It carries depth. It carries authority. That is why God often uses older saints to release revival, because they have paid the price of endurance. Don't say, "I'm too old to start again." Say, "I'm mature enough to trust Him completely." Don't say, "My season is over." Say, "My fruit is ripening." The later years of life are not for retreat. They are for revelation. It's the time when God unfolds mysteries you were too busy to see before. It's when He quiets the noise and lets you hear His heart clearly. You are not fading. You are refining. The light may appear softer, but it is purer. The flame may not flicker as high, but it burns with steadier fire. The Spirit of God within you does not age. He is as strong, as powerful, as alive in you today as He was the day you first believed. And now, with all the experiences you carry, you can cooperate with Him more wisely than ever before. So don't measure your worth by your pace. Measure it by your purpose. Don't compare your season to anyone else's. Flowers don't all bloom at the same time, but each has its appointed hour to show its beauty. You are in your appointed hour right now. This is not the sunset of your life. It is the golden glow that makes everything shine with divine meaning. God does not lose interest in his servants when they grow old. In fact, he treasures them more deeply because now he can trust them with the kind of wisdom that only comes through years of walking with him. Your silver hair is not a sign of weakness. It is a crown of faithfulness. Your slower steps are not delay. They are the rhythm of grace. Let this truth settle in your heart today. Every wrinkle, every scar, every year is a testimony that God's power has carried you this far, and he's not about to stop now. Every story God writes through a human life is sacred. Every tear you have cried, every valley you have walked through, every prayer whispered in the darkness, all of it was not wasted. What you call your past, God calls his curriculum, and what you thought would destroy you has become the very testimony that can deliver someone else. You see, God never lets pain pass through your life without purpose. The devil may have meant it for evil, but God repurposes it for influence. The wounds you carry, the ones you once tried to hide, can become the very places where his light shines the brightest. When you tell your story, not from bitterness but from victory, you open a door for others to walk through. There is someone right now who feels exactly like you once did, uncertain, broken, hopeless. They're praying the same desperate prayers you once prayed. And while they wait for a miracle, God is preparing to send you as the answer. Your story is not meant to be locked away. It is a key that can unlock the prison of another person's fear. When you share what God has done in your life, you're not boasting, you're bearing witness. You're saying, if he could bring me out, he can bring you out too. Maybe you survived sickness, loss, rejection, or betrayal. Maybe you fought depression, loneliness, or failure. Those experiences were not punishments. They were preparation. They taught you compassion. They made your heart tender to the suffering of others. They gave your faith credibility. People may argue with your theology, but they can't argue with your testimony. They can dismiss your opinions, but they can't dismiss your transformation. When you speak from experience, heaven backs your words with power because you're not repeating theory. You're revealing truth that has been lived, tested, and proven. Remember how God told Peter, when you have been restored, strengthen your brothers. That's the pattern of grace. God heals you so you can become a healer. He comforts you so you can become a comforter. He teaches you perseverance so you can teach others to endure. Your scars are not shame. They are signatures of survival. Think about Joseph, betrayed by his brothers, sold as a slave, imprisoned for a lie, and yet, when he finally rose to power, he said, God sent me before you to preserve life. What does that mean? It means the pain you went through was not only for you, it was to prepare you to preserve others. Your past becomes prophetic when you allow God to use it as nourishment for those still walking the road you conquered. There are people who will never listen to a preacher, but will listen to you. They may never open a Bible, but they'll read your life. You are a walking message, a living epistle written by the Spirit. Every chapter of your story, your struggles, your comebacks, your moments of faith, teaches something sacred. Never think your testimony is too small. Someone needs to know that God can still provide groceries for an empty table. Someone needs to know that forgiveness is possible after betrayal. Someone needs to know that peace can return after years of anxiety. The details of your deliverance are someone else's roadmap to freedom. And listen, telling your story doesn't mean you have to have everything perfectly together. In fact, it's your honesty that gives your words power. When people hear you say, I was afraid, but I kept praying, or I doubted, but I still obeyed, they find courage to believe that maybe God can work with their weakness too. Your transparency becomes their transformation. Your life is not random, it is revelation. God intentionally allows you to pass through certain seasons so that you can guide others through them later. That's why your journey matters. That's why your survival has meaning. Every disappointment you overcame is a message from heaven saying, it's possible. Every obstacle you conquered shouts, don't give up yet. So speak. Don't silence your story because of shame or fear. Don't minimize what God has done. Someone's breakthrough is waiting on your testimony. Someone's faith is anchored to your endurance. Someone's future depends on your willingness to say, this is what God brought me through. And remember, stories don't have to be loud to be powerful. Sometimes it's a quiet conversation over tea. Sometimes it's a letter, a prayer, or a simple act of kindness. Every time you share even a piece of your journey, heaven multiplies its impact. You may not realize it, but your story is sacred currency in the economy of the spirit. The more you give it away, the more lives are redeemed through it. What once felt like pain now becomes purpose. What once felt like loss now becomes legacy. So don't hide your scars. They are proof that you fought and that grace won. Your story might just be the survival guide that helps someone else find their way back to hope. My beloved friend, as we draw this message to a close, I want you to take a moment, just one moment, to feel the breath moving through your lungs. That gentle rhythm, in and out, is not just the movement of air. It is the movement of divine purpose. Each breath you take is a whisper from God Himself saying, I am still with you. I still have plans for you. So often we believe that after a certain age, life begins to slow down. The world tells us that we've already played our part, that it's time to fade quietly into the background. But heaven does not operate by earthly calendars. God does not measure value in decades. He measures it in destiny. If you are still breathing, then your assignment is still active. You may feel the weight of years on your shoulders, but remember, God has never been limited by age. He is the God of Abraham, who fathered nations in his old age. He is the God of Moses, who led people to freedom at 80. He is the God of Sarah, who laughed at the thought of a miracle and then held it in her arms. If He could do it for them, He can do it through you. When you were young, you might have prayed for success. Now God is calling you to significance. When you were strong, you may have chased achievement. Now He invites you to sow legacy. This is not your season of decline. It is your season of divine design. The second half of life is not about what you can earn, but about what you can give. Not about what you can gain, but about what you can pass on. You have wisdom that came at the cost of tears. You have faith that was built through fire. You have endurance that was shaped in the valleys. And now God is saying, use it. Speak life to those who are weary. Lay your hands on those who are broken. Pray over those who are searching. Teach those who are coming behind you what it means to stand when life shakes. You are not a spectator in this season. You are a vessel carrying the oil of experience that the next generation desperately needs. Do not despise your age. Celebrate it. You are living proof that God sustains, God provides, and God restores. You have seen seasons come and go, but through it all, His mercy has remained constant. Look back at your life, not with regret, but with gratitude. Every storm you survived was preparing you for this moment. Every disappointment was a seed that taught you how to trust deeper. Every delay was God positioning you for greater things. And maybe you look around and feel like the world has changed too much, that your time has passed. But I want you to know, God does not forget His servants. You are still a vital part of His plan. Your prayers still move mountains. Your words still plant seeds of faith. Your faith still lights the path for those walking behind you. Perhaps your strength isn't what it used to be, but God never asked for perfect strength. He asked for surrendered hearts. Maybe your hands tremble when you lift them, but heaven still receives your worship with joy. Maybe your steps have slowed, but every step you take in faith still shakes the gates of hell. The body may grow older, but the spirit remains eternally young in the presence of the Lord. And when you wake up each morning, don't say, another day has passed. Say, another day of purpose has begun. You are not living by accident. You are living by appointment. There are still people who need your story. There are still souls who need your prayer. There are still lives waiting to be touched by the wisdom you carry.